Alrighty, welcome to the After the Click Photography Podcast with me, Andy Gray, and today I've got the lovely pleasure of speaking to Morag Paterson, one half of the team of Leeming Paterson, very well established photographers and photography tutors. Now, Morag being a fine tutor in her own right, she is also part of the ICM Photo Mag Network, an online membership community dedicated to tutoring and mentoring clients interested in learning the art and the techniques of ICM photography. So that's a large chunk of the coming chat. And if you want to find out more about that, then the address to go to is the ICM Photo Mag Network. That will get you there. So that's coming up in a second. But initially, just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Now, the plan going forward, I started this with the last podcast with Suzanne Clements, is that the audio of this podcast will be going out as soon as it's ready. The video version of this podcast will appear as part of my own Patreon community, and it will be on that Patreon community for a time. It may vary, and then it will be released properly on YouTube on my own channel, youtube.com/Andrew S. Gray. Maybe it's after 2 to 3 weeks, maybe it's a month after the initial audio has gone out. So I just wanted to inform you of that so you can easily find the next podcast, whether that be in audio form or video form. So as this one goes out, Suzanne's podcast episode will be going out on video on YouTube, on my channel, youtube.com/Andrew S. Gray. Right then, that's enough of the housekeeping, all that dirty laundry and all that. And well, let's head over to my chat with the lovely Morag Paterson right now. Right then, Morag, thank you so much for joining me on the After the Click Photography Podcast. I think this is episode 7, so we're rapidly getting started again, eventually. I mean, I've been familiar with your name for a good few years as part of the Leeming Paterson team, and the reputations of your both procedure and your creative photography styles. But that's my little assessment. I'll give from the horse's mouth. Please give me your assessment or background to Morag Paterson.
Wow. No pressure then. First off, thanks for having me. It's really lovely to be invited along. What can I say? I think, I'm primarily known for my ICM work, I would guess, similar to yourself. But, I do dabble in lots of other types of photography as well. I've done a stint doing traditional photography here and there when I'm working with Ted on, projects like the zero footprint one we've done here, where we took every photo from the same place for 5 years. And nowadays I'm doing primarily, I would say, a mixture of ICM and then quite a lot of alternative process as well. Dabbling with chromatography is my latest passion. Been doing quite a lot of cyanotypes and cathanol developing, solagraphs, you name it. I think it just for me.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
Name it. You've had a go at it.
Yeah, I think because when you're working in the digital world quite a lot, and you're out there having that really lovely connection, aren't you, in nature, taking your images, and then you're spending a lot of time with your screen, aren't you, either processing them or doing your admin or doing your social media, and actually just to take a break and do a bit of hands-on work to break that up, I really enjoy. So I don't know, that's a sort of snapshot of where I am now. Did you want any history or background?
Well, I was going to say, how long have you, I mean, obviously you, we class ourselves as professional photographers. We do this for a living, whether that's a positive or negative. How long have you been on the professional side, the living earning?
16 years now, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, congratulations or commiserations. No. To be fair, I'm enjoying it more and more all the time
Right.
now. It goes through phases, doesn't it, where you can feel a bit stuck or a bit slow, but in quite a good space with it at the moment, I think. So,
so things are going well, and yet the last few years haven't caused too much.
No, I mean, with sort of no disrespect to everyone who's suffered a lot during the last 2 years, it's actually been possibly a little bit beneficial for us, because obviously we live in the back of beyond, which means you're not out networking and you're not getting to loads of shows or exhibits or, all the things that you can do if you're a bit more urban based. So everybody going digital suddenly for us was a real opportunity to just join in with that. And we had a kind of level playing field for once with everyone else around the world, as people kind of tried to figure out what they could do when you can't go anywhere.
When you couldn't. Well, I was going to say, obviously you're up there in Scotland or in Italy. And I'm a similar, like my opinion has been quite similar, is that due to various reasons, I kind of work in a 20-mile square radius of home, and that's been, my career has been within that time. I've not one for traveling at all, and so I see these travel photographers going out all over the world for many years, and then the last 2 years they've all been like, oh crap, what do you do? And it's like, well, effectively that's what some of us have done for a decade or more. And still managed to, build a career or a following or whatever you want to class it as. But I think maybe it's because we've held ourselves in such a small location or a certain, our styles we've developed that style. Whereas if there's no problem with you jumping on a plane and jetting to wherever, to the next beautiful iconic location, then your style's going to be fairly similar all the time.
Yes, and you're kind of, waiting for outside influence, in terms of places or external things to get a spark going. Whereas I don't know if you find as well, the more I stay local and the smaller the place I explore is, the happier I am almost. I get really daunted if I go to a new place.
Yeah.
I kind of have to get used to it for possibly more than a day, maybe even a month before I feel like taking a photo. Whereas just walking around the same places over and over again, I find really inspiring, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the weather changing and the seasons changing, and the exact, like you say, you've taken the exact same shot for for over 5 years. Then you're going to see all the little differences. And
absolutely. And I wonder, I mean, I guess we did do that with traditional photography for 5 solid years. And I guess we relied heavily on weather, to get any variety into that. Because I was just wondering if it's much easier to be rooted in the same place with abstract photography, because your possibilities are essentially endless, aren't they? But then I think you probably could do it with traditional photography too, especially if you went for macro and right through to like wide angle options. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, what I do is, it is ICM photography, but I do tend to go towards the vista kind of outlook rather than the more intimate stuff. But that's maybe just that's where my influences have pushed me. So I'm still looking at, where I live in Northumberland, we've got various iconic views and locations, and I do tend to see myself going there far too often, and rarely relying on the smaller, more intimate stuff. I mean, the last I can think of was playing around with frozen puddles last winter, and just thinking in a completely different mindset. Obviously, not ICM. It was very, trying to be as sharp as possible. Anyway, it's hard to do when you're reel against tripods and the like.
Yeah, how'd you get
But
on with that? I'm always the same. I think I'm going to do this macro shot. It's a really nice subject. I've got the lens and everything. And then it's like, oh, it's so awkward to get the tripod set up for that. I'm just going to up the ISO and go handheld and hope for the
yeah,
best.
exactly. Just go handheld, and then you still something's you just miss that focal
Yeah.
plane slightly, and you just it's just ruined.
Something's always wrong, isn't it? And
Yeah,
I go,
exactly.
well, I've learned a lesson from that, or or I could just crop the middle out of that these
Oh
days
yeah,
with
I
my
mean,
file size.
I've always been, I always have been, and continue to be a big fan of cropping.
Yeah,
I try to distill that onto anybody I'm talking to. Is like just because the entire frame doesn't work, it's like if there's a little mark here, just crop into that, or just use that as you're layering into another. Yeah, as you're
absolutely.
blending stuff together, like I
Yeah.
do. So some of my best stuff would be just been a flash of light somewhere on the far left hand side of a frame, and you just disregard everything else, and you just latch onto that.
Absolutely. And that is the beauty of layering, isn't it? I mean, I don't do it a lot, but I do it sometimes. And yeah, you can bring so many elements of pictures that you would never have been able to put out on their own. But you knew what you wanted to shoot when you were there,
Yeah.
but didn't get it as a, kind of perfectionist
Yeah,
image.
exactly. It's, I
You
mean,
know it will come in.
the style that we use, we haven't got a lot of control over what's happening anyway.
No.
So if you're trying to build an image around this one small element that's in the frame, then it's going to be a tricky job. So you've got to use those layering tools. I mean, a prime example, I was just doing a one-to-one. Was it just yesterday or the day before? And the lady that I was talking to had it. It was a beach shot, and there'd been a dog in the frame on the foreground on the edge of the water. And she wasn't even sure, that it had been there, but you could see that, the hind legs and several frames of dog as it's moved through the length of the shutter. And I was like, that's a great thing to have in the frame. I was like, just use that to layer as a part of a layer as you're building the vista of the full beach and the trees and the sunset and all that kind of stuff. And it came together really well. And without that, I think it was a lesser image.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Objects and people can really add a great sense of scale, I think, can't they?
It can. I mean, it also, it helps, lead the eye, and depending on the type of photography, type of image it is, but, it helps pull the eye in and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's me talking about composition and stuff. My God,
you're getting technical on me now.
No, let's stop that.
going down a dodgy alleyway there.
It is. I mean, obviously over years in the business, have you taught all that time?
Taught from pretty early on, yeah. Certainly after about a few years, then we started teaching. Just mainly, we started off doing really informal stuff, just around, we'd have people into our own house, I'd make them soup, I'd do the baking,
right?
And and then we take them out on trips, and then they'd be watching a tutorial on our TV here and stuff like that. But obviously that changed, and we did do the travel stuff for quite a while, just because people really wanted to. Yeah. But we've pulled back from that entirely now. We just want to reduce our footprint as much as we can, really. And I just really do enjoy working local. So yeah. So now we went from being really local to going off jetting around the place, and now we're contracting right back again.
Right back to base camp, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because is it for like workshops next this coming year or something? You're doing the non-flight.
No flying. Yeah.
No flying at all.
No.
So I believe in that, having not been on a plane since 1996.
Oh, good for you. Is that because you hate flying as well as environmental, or neither of you?
Well, I was never very keen on flying, but I'm not very keen on traveling, to be honest.
No.
So hence everything's local, and if anybody wants to, wants to want one with me, like in person, then they've got to come here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where we'll be at with it as well. Yeah, I hated flying as well, so it was such a huge relief to decide not to do it anymore.
Well, to be honest, it's just one of them things that, you know, we've as a family, we've just never done. We didn't do foreign holidays, apart from, well, we'd go up into Scotland or whatever, if you can call that foreign. And you know, my dad was a farmer, so we couldn't be away for very long anyway. So it was, you know, when other people were jetting off to Spain or France or whatever, maybe it's even further afield. You know, we were nipping up to Port Patrick in Scotland, up the west. You know, it's like 3 hours away.
Yeah, not far from us, and well, but it's probably almost an hour and a half from here, actually.
You know, that's the kind of holidays, or down to Scarborough, or, you know, in the Yorkshire, and, you know, that would be, you know, a long weekend, and that would be the, you know, the main holiday for the year.
Yeah.
So I've just never been a traveller, and therefore, you know, never got involved with the whole horrible airport experiences and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for it, though. You know, I mean, Ted and I have started like just going 2 valleys over for a holiday and stuff like that, you know, and if you only got to drive an hour or two to where you're going, there's just so much less stress, isn't there? Because you could nip home for something if you forgot it.
If you've forgotten something, like, oh, I didn't put any cat food out. All right,
because you know what it's like when if you get on a plane, you automatically have this huge barrier between, you know, where you're going and home, and you've got to have everything with you, or it could be like a disaster. Whereas if you're just toddling off to a town not that far away, or a beach or whatever, then you just don't have that, do you?
Apart from the cost of petrol at the moment.
Oh yeah, we've switched to electric actually.
All right.
The cost of electric's going to
skyrocket as well.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't win, can you?
You really can't. You can't.
But that's if, you know, we're both happy staying so close to home, you actually just don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I know when I decided to jack in work and then do this kind of full time, I'll just cut everything right back.
Yeah.
What I didn't need, I just cut it right back. And, you know, I've been doing that for 10, 11 years now.
Yeah.
Just living very much within my means. And obviously with each year, as everything goes up, it gets harder and harder. But, you know.
Yeah, just simplifying.
You know, happiness is the main thing.
What did you do before this then?
I was an architectural CAD draftsman.
Okay.
Thing. So just in a small local like big estate management had their own drone office, so I was in that. Wow. So it was all, you know, barn conversions and doing up rental properties for these big estates and things like that. So.
And how long ago did you pack that in for the pro life?
That was 11 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
So I've been coping since.
Yeah.
So no, it's been, well, it just got to that point where I was like, if I don't do something now, I'm going to be stuck in this for however many more years, miserable, still not earning much because the pay was crap. And then I was like, sod it, I'm getting stressed. You know, it was stressing us out. There was a lot of things going on, and it was like, nah, I've had my time. Thank you very much for it's been enjoyable, but
yeah, and life's just too short, isn't it?
It is,
you know.
No, I mean, like a few things had prompted it, and it was getting worse, and I was getting more responsibility, and I was like, I don't handle responsibility well.
Yeah.
So I want to be responsible for me and my affairs. I don't want to be responsible for some Duke or Earl or whatever's bank account, and these, you know, I was like, no, because I'll just make a mistake and it'll cost a bloody fortune, and it comes back on me, and I'm like, nah, I can barely keep my own bank account straight. So
too much weight on the shoulders. Yeah.
So taking pictures for a living sounded like a good idea at the time, but no, it's been great. And to be honest, I was lucky enough to well, I'm saying lucky enough. Unfortunately, my aunt died, and when her estate was settled, there was a bit of money for the various brothers and sisters or nieces and nephews, depending who was still alive. So got a bit of a cash injection, and that meant I could actually spend a bit of time just dicking around with the camera for a bit of time and developing this style. So maybe without that, then I would have been trying to be a travel photographer stuck in Northumberland.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
No.
mean, I've been lucky to be able to dedicate that time for this to come about. But no, it's
Yeah.
but in them early days of trying the names of Leeming and Paterson were very much the headlines
Oh,
where
really?
where people were aiming for, and it was like, oh, creative photography. That's those guys. That's those
In that dim and distant past now.
guys.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few
I
more
think,
people doing it now, isn't there?
oh, for sure. I mean, it's been amazing because I mean,
Mm.
you'll know as well from when you started out, the first few exhibitions we had were just, they could have tumbleweed moments. I think people would book us for a show and then expect us to do the traditional stuff. And then in the meantime, we'd change tack and we're full of this creative photography. And you'd go to the gallery with your, this is what we're planning on showing. And they'd just be like, oh my God, I'm going to have to check with the director. In magazines, there was almost nothing, was there? Just a token piece every now and again.
Yeah.
Whereas it is much more mainstream now, which is great.
It is. It's brilliant, and I mean, obviously, we'll come on to it, but the ICM Photo Mag and the network that's attached to it and all that. That's helped a lot of people, as I can as I can see by the membership, by the list of members that I've just logged in to have a look through.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic. But yeah, there's more of it around, and as I keep on having to tell my mother that if I didn't do all this blurry stuff, as she calls it, I wouldn't be known, outside the village of, 45 people that I live in.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have 20,000 followers or whatever, and here, there, and wouldn't be doing a thing on YouTube every week because nobody liked or appreciated my normal stuff. So
yeah,
that was the great thing about it.
Harder to find a way of standing out, I would say, in that landscape world now. I mean, it was difficult enough 15 years ago, but you could just about still do it. But now I can imagine it's almost impossible.
And I think now you've almost got to be photographing in a certain style and being able to process in a certain style for anybody to, I think they'll get used to like the whole Instagram look. So if you're not photographing in that Instagram style, then your magazines aren't going to be interested. So your travel people aren't going to be interested, and just becomes a downward spiral to the point where everything's a bit flat and everybody's doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
So it's really great that ICM and all the other various abstract styles are there for people to be able to be creative in and be able to thrive in.
Absolutely.
Because it's not something that everybody can do. Everybody can have a try at it, but actually being able to do with any competency is pretty tricky.
Yeah, for sure. It's not an accidental stroke of good luck when you get a good photo, is it? It's knowing to read the light and knowing, it's years and years of experience at the end of the day.
There's lots and lots of practice needed.
Yeah.
It's almost, I wouldn't say, you can feel the disappointment, hear the disappointment in people's voices when you say like, well, they're just, a lot of practice in doing that and a lot of practice doing that, and you'll eventually be able to, it'll eventually come along for you. And then I think that some of them will just like, well, is it not just a case of clicking?
Yeah.
Give it a waft and it's like, well, you will get something, but
it'll be much harder to you've got to do quite a lot of work before it becomes just almost muscle memory, haven't you? But where you can look at something and go, okay, I'm pretty sure that will work, and even then you might have it completely wrong and need to think again and try something. But yeah, I would say it's probably the biggest error I would come across is that people just don't spend enough time on site in a place and working through. I don't know how long you take on every single shot, but you're lucky. Well, I don't know you, but I'm lucky to get one decent shot every month, that I really like.
Yeah.
I'll get lots of other stuff. And when I'm out just on that one shot, I'll probably have spent maybe an hour just out there refining it. Once I've got the basis of the good shot, I'll be okay. How do I work through that? How do I keep going with it? There are some, aren't there, where the light's just perfect and the contrast there, and
it's just easy to work with, isn't it? It's I tend to work more with numbers rather than like spending a lot of time over something. Is a lot. I think the way I kind of photograph is you find that scene, because like I said earlier, that I do kind of deal with vistas more than a more intimate kind of shot. So I'm like, right, I'm in the scene, and then say what you've got your, like I tell everybody, I'll compose the scene as if it's like a traditional representative landscape shot, and then I'm flicking the camera around to get the proportions right and the things in the right place and in a pleasing fashion. And for me, it's just after that, it's get that nice balanced exposure, like that gives you the best data you can get to be able to work with later on. And then it's just lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of photographs after that. And then say you've taken 50, 60, 100 of one setup, you can pull out maybe 20 of those. And then out of those 20, you probably work with 5, blend them 5 together, and then you work on one, and it's like, it hasn't really worked. So then you look at a few more, and so maybe out of that 100, you'll be lucky if you get 1 or 2 images out of it, and then like you look at them the next day and you hate them anyway. So then you've got nothing, and then
I totally relate to that.
Because it isn't just a case of I wouldn't say rocking up at sunset or sunrise, and plashing the tripod down and pressing the shutter at the right time. There's a lot, it's very random what we do, and it can be tricky. And then you're dealing with, is the light slightly too strong because it's leaving too many jaggedy edges and it's not smoothing enough. If you're moving at the wrong pace, there's a lot to get right to get the best potential out of shots, which I think a lot of people don't realize until they've spent quite a bit of time doing it. It's
that time and patience is really the thing that will put you in the best stead at the end of the day.
I started flailing my arms around in about, was it October 2013 was when I first started playing around with it, and it was like the following August before I got an image I liked. And that was almost exclusively just doing ICM stuff, and then discovering the various blending things together and playing around with that. But it took a long time to get to the point. I made plenty of images in between, which at the time I reasonably liked, but it took a while for that, like a big light bulb moment to come along. Actually, that's me. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, and you've got a really signature style, haven't you? Whereas I jump around quite a lot more. But yeah, we had to teach ourselves because there was no easy way to find people when we started. And the internet wasn't kind of what it is now either. And I think I was listening back to the interview you did for the community actually earlier, and I think my route into ICM was fairly similar to yours.
Right.
I was photographing passion flowers blowing around in the wind on the tripod one day.
Right.
Went back, looked at all the images, thought, I really like what's happening there, but I haven't nailed it. So I'll go back the next day, and there was no wind. So I set up the tripod, and then I started going, what am I going to do? There's no wind. Started trying to wiggle the plant around with my hand while I was taking the photo. But obviously the movement was just kind of a bit abrupt and didn't look very pleasing. And I just suddenly thought, well, hang on, why don't I move the camera instead then and see what happens? And that was it. I never looked back.
Well, I think we've probably had the advantage that we haven't been taught how to do it. We've actually discovered it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, we randomly found out what ICM was, but then saying, right, for me, there was Doug Chinnery did a video, and that was my kind of introduction to how it was done. And that was that. But other than that, it was like, well, I've still got to find a subject that I'm going to do it around, and and you've still got to get used to how you move and the speed and filters and how, what the best settings are and all that. So discovering all that for yourself, I think is very rewarding, because we've probably done it at the right time. Whereas now there's ourselves and the network and Doug and Valda and everybody else that does the tuition all around the world of this style and styles close to it. There's a lot more resources, and people they're almost being, I wouldn't say hand fed, but they've got we've paved the way for them to get ahead of the game almost.
Yeah. So there's a lot of information out there, and they can try and use it but that also can have the counterproductive thing of following one person's instructional style, which may not have the same benefits of self-learning. But yeah, it's also probably a lot easier.
That was one of the things I was gonna ask you about, because when I'm doing my tuition, it is very much a case of, well, this is what I do, because I have got pretty much a single style, and almost single subject matter as well. Whereas yourselves, there's a lot more variables to it, different styles and different techniques. So to me, I would say that somebody's going to get way more out of you guys than coming to me, because all I'm doing is I'm going to show you some castles, how I photograph them, and then how I process them. Whereas you're in a position and you can actually properly push people in a certain direction, certainly through the network and the rolling tuition that you all do, and all the feedback sessions and all that. You can actually let somebody develop their own style, whereas what I'm doing is effectively just, this is what I do. Can you see the...
Yeah, and a lot of the time people are asking me things and I'm saying, do you know what, you're going to have to go and watch an anti-grain tutorial to learn that. Because I do a little bit of layering, but it's rare. It's not my main go-to, and I'm very, very lazy about processing, which is a real detriment, and I need to constantly trying to push myself to do a bit more, because you can get more out of an image.
Just push it a little bit further. But that takes time as well to realize what you can get out of it. Not only have you learning to control the wrist movements and the light and all that in it, but it's also getting to know your camera and how far you can reclaim from the shadows or push it before it gets too noisy, and all of that kind of stuff. That takes time as well.
Yeah. And I think maybe on a personal level, I've maybe changed a bit in the last 2 years, just like into a slightly more positive space potentially. So my work used to be quite dark, and it'd always probably look a bit underexposed to people, and deliberately, or just because I didn't want to push it any further. And actually it's been Kaiser's voice in the back of my head a lot of the time saying to other people, don't you think you need to brighten this photo? And it's really made me start looking at my own and thinking, God, you know what, I probably need to brighten all my photos. But yeah, so it's I guess what I do is try and help people get the best out of what they've got in front of them, learning how to zero in on what might work, and very much trying to help them develop their own style rather than taking on my style. But it's always very hard as well not to just put yourself, and say, well, this is how I would do it. And then when they're asking you to review their work, you're obviously going to naturally go with your favorites, aren't you? The ones you like. And that's actually another really handy thing about working across three of us. There's three really different opinions and aesthetics in there, even though our work overlaps a lot. And that's a really good one. And it's made me hold my tongue quite a few times, because there's maybe been something where I would have jumped in and said, well, this one, not so much. And then one of the others will jump in and say they absolutely love that one. Yeah. And that's been a really big lesson as well about, for me, about being very careful about that. because dismissing something someone's done just because it's maybe not my cup of tea isn't very helpful to them.
Yeah, and that's something I struggle with as well. To like a bit of feedback of like, I've taken the, as they're starting the session or whatever, I've taken these, what do you think? And you're like, right, try to be objective, Andy. Try not to think in your own head, and I mean, obviously, I'm always trying to be as positive as I can, and point out, the positives, and ignore the negatives or whatever, or explain, one way or the other. But it's tricky just to not impose your own style and thought processes on somebody else's data. Even though what I'm doing at the moment, I'm working on a collaboration with a Swiss photographer, and they're supplying the ICM data, and I'm doing the processing, all like the creative editing of it all. And even then, I'm like, oh, if only you'd been a little bit further that way, and a little bit. But so I've got to just like, well, I've just got to work with what I've got, and the same, when people bring their work to us to for feedback on it, like, I've just got to knock myself back and just help them as I mean, with constructive stuff.
It's liberating, actually, to, like you were saying, when you're collaborating with the Swiss person, and because Ted and I used to butt heads quite a lot over stuff we didn't necessarily like 100% like or feel like it fitted with, and that could cause quite a lot of tension, and at certain times. And actually just collaborating with lots more people and collaborating much more openly, I've realized how so much of that stuff just isn't important to get hung up on, whether it's precisely how I would have done it or not. It's like, it's fine for other people to do stuff differently.
Yeah.
Wish I'd learned that a lot earlier.
So I mean, obviously, like what I do, and you've kind of alluded to it as well, is that you help people find their own style. The difference between tutoring and mentoring. Mentoring is not really something I've kind of gone into at all. Maybe something I should possibly look at. But I do the pretty much straight down the line. You press a shutter like this and blow up, and then you process like this. What's the main kind of differences for you between the tutoring and the the mentoring side, which obviously goes on over a longer bit of time, and obviously through the network, it's mainly network mentoring, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I would say the key thing is, with mentoring, you're trying to give somebody the tools to be able to make these decisions and work through their problems and reach their goals themselves.
Yeah.
But you're not writing that pathway for them. You're actually just saying, okay, so what you, I mean, the very basic premise of mentoring is, where are you now? What are your goals, and what's stopping you from getting to your goals? And actually, it's actually very hard for people to articulate those things in the first place. But once they can, and you can start breaking down what the hurdles are, then it's very easy to start just laying things potentially in the path that might help them. But I mean, what it really isn't, and I think it's what people maybe expect it to be at the outset, is it's not a magic wand. Mentoring is a process where the mentee has to do a lot of work. It should be enjoyable work, and but yeah, it's not like I'm going to come along and solve all your problems for you or tell you how to do something. I can cut some things where you might waste your time out of the way, quite easily.
Okay, like what we've said already, like, if you can give somebody a bit of a head start, or get over that certain bridge, and then let them run again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's whereas sort of teaching photography is, like you say, it's much more, here's the technical aspect, and here's how you could maybe think about the composition in that picture, and if it's in the past tense, well, perhaps you could crop it like this. It's much more factual knowledge transfer, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's probably why I would maybe struggle with mentoring a bit more, because like I've said, that I'm very much not stuck, but very much focused on one style, one way, so somebody
Well, the other thing with mentoring is technically you shouldn't need to have any expertise in the field that person wants to be mentored in.
Good point.
And I think you'd be great, actually. I think you should think about it.
I'll find some willing victims first.
Yeah. But you know what? Another good thing to practice it is co-mentoring with a peer.
Right.
Because it's not, we all need mentoring at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what stage we're at. And just swapping that with a peer on a really informal basis is also a really good way to start. Because you get that kind of feedback and you get into the swing of it, and then once you do that, you can see how it works.
Yeah, and then you can take it forward from there.
Yeah.
Good point. I'll have to have more thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, the ICM Photo Network obviously started off by the lovely Stephanie.
Yeah.
So, like, out of the three ladies, you are the third one I'm speaking to.
Well,
I've been through you all. Stephanie was the pilot episode.
Yeah.
And then Kaiser was the first proper guest. So I'm very much well affiliated with the magazine and everything. So how did you get involved with it all then, Morag?
I think me and Stephanie had a conversation quite early on about doing some mentoring for the magazine. And I can't remember I think I contacted her, just sort of saw the mag and went, this is great, love it. If you want someone to do something for it, do some mentoring, I'd be well up for it. And you know how often you have those sorts of conversations in the photography world. Normally it's like, oh yeah, I'll think about it, or I'll see, or, you just never get a response or anything. And Stephanie, being Stephanie, just went, yeah, that's a great idea. Start next week or something, And it was like, wow, okay, cool. So I started doing the free mentoring where the people can apply a free in every issue. And then we do a little project that goes in the next issue. And then at some point we started talking about running online workshops.
Right.
And then we were sort of starting to build them. And I think the first one came out just as the pandemic hit. So it was actually kind of probably good timing for people. And so we kind of designed this course between the three of us, which we've done, I think, 4 times now, the New Beginnings workshops. And then from doing those first 2 workshops in the kind of winter of 2020, January to March, then we thought, okay, so how could we do this in a way that gives people a more continuous development? And we keep in touch with them all the time, basically. And so that's how the network was born out of that. I think Stephanie had it going around.
I was going to say, I remember early discussions of like at the very start of the magazine, because obviously I was involved in the very first episode issue, first couple, I think, anyway. And from the very word go, she had this vision in her mind about probably wasn't called a network at the time, but a membership community set up. So she's been sitting on this idea for a good while.
Absolutely.
So I was really pleased to see when it, obviously the magazine was going, doing really well, and then she actually could spend the time building it out, and progressing that, because I know she had been wanting to do it for quite a while.
Yeah, I think she'd even sort of tried to mention it to us a couple of times, and like it just seemed too daunting or something we didn't know enough about, and we'd just sort of been like, oh, I don't know about that. And then suddenly once we did, we built out those workshops together, and because I didn't even know Kaiser until we designed those workshops. Stephanie just said, oh, if we're going to do workshops, I've also been talking to Kaiser about it. Are you happy doing it all 3? So that was, I didn't meet Kaiser till autumn 2019, I don't think. And we've never met in person, ever, any of us.
That's a great thing about this, isn't it?
And then finally we did the workshops, and then suddenly I could see what Stephanie was saying with this community, and it made sense, and we all said, okay, right, let's go for it. But Stephanie works so hard, it is just incredible. and she's got the vision,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's got the determination and the admin skills to actually just start
Be able to
building
do it.
websites out.
Yes, there's only a certain type of person could manage to put all this, to like just the admin side of stuff to put this all together.
Yeah.
Because there's just, I know for a fact I couldn't do it. I can barely get through a day.
Yeah, my
So,
brain would melt.
yeah.
But I can put a website together or this or that or whatever. But yeah, it's all the descriptive writing and how to let people know how it's going to happen and all the rest. If I was doing that, I'd be writing a one-liner saying, "We've got a community. Do you want to join it?"
Yeah,
Whereas Stephanie's much better.
Yeah, I was going to say the way my brain thinks as well. It's like, well, obviously everybody knows how to use a website and do this and get started to on a certain point. And it was only when I looked into the network earlier on, I saw there's a starting point and there's a long list of things to do as you progress through, and then it becomes all self-explanatory, and you don't need a big starting document of like, this is how this is how you do it all by practical like things, just adding your name and your socials and then a photograph of yourself and then you get into what your style is and all this kind of stuff later on, and you like it's beautifully done and just done so well that anybody joining now, I think a lot of these things people kind of think like, oh, I didn't join it at the start, so therefore I'll have missed out on so much. But now, you go on it and you're handheld all the way through it, and there's loads of resources on there. You've got all your videos that you've ever shot on there. There's just so much content already, and you've been doing it in what, 2 years?
No, I think 1 year. Is it? I don't know. No, it's not even a year.
Is it not even a year? Is it? All right. I mean, just remarkable.
I think we launched in June last year.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Time flies.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? I mean, we did, the workshops were 1 year ago we started, and the community. Yeah, so we have, when you mention it like that and the amount of content that is in there already, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's just, remarkable. So like, obviously the main thing is don't be scared about joining now. It's all there ready to go.
Absolutely. And it's not a kind of linear journey either. I wouldn't say that if you haven't done something up until this point, you've missed something, because it's inspiration and theme based. It's not been a progressive tuition. Those things come out all the time just during the course of the sort of 2-month themes. And actually, as much as anything in the live sessions, those things probably come out, I think. And they're all recorded, obviously, so people can go back and watch if they miss anything.
I watched through part of one of them, and it's just great that everybody, there's nobody shy about not chipping in on other people's work, and giving creative constructive feedback in amongst the group, and not just from yourselves at the top. It's really good that everybody gets involved.
We've deliberately changed that up not that long ago, because we realize that if we speak first, it can probably be more intimidating for people than to follow on and say something themselves. But actually, if you let the first comments come from other people, then it seems to make a really nice level playing field at that point, where everybody wants to join in and say something.
Because you're always going to get people that are hanging back and say, well, I don't want to put my view across, or because Morag's here or Stephanie's here. So it is really good that people of all levels can put in, get input into other people's styles and work. And
absolutely. And there's a real range in there, of people who are just beginning, people who've only just started doing ICM, to people who've been doing it for years and years. But when there's been some people who've had some incredible successes in there as well recently. One of the lassies from Australia got a photo that she'd done in response to one of our themes placed in the top 10 of the Australian landscape photographer of the year.
Brilliant.
Or something. Fantastic. And it was a project she'd taken out in lockdown from one of the themes, following a piece of literature that she'd sort of chosen, or something that was in the presentation. I can't remember. And that was something she said she would never have done normally.
Without the theme and the
and then just had this amazing success. So that, is really heartwarming, and people getting their work in exhibitions, and all sorts of stuff going on there, which is really nice.
Excellent. We just need a few bigger competitions over here that will actually accept these kind of photographs here.
Yeah, I mean,
not pointing any fingers at any certain competitions or anything.
Anyone in particular? No.
All of them I've found in my case.
I mean, obviously, competitions are a kind of whole area of debate in themselves, aren't they, as well? But it's really nice to see people who are doing that do well. So yeah.
It is. The more people do it, the more accepted it will be, and then the better off we'll all be.
Yeah. Well, perhaps I think we've been talking about an ICM competition.
All right.
Maybe we just need to have our own competition.
Well, I think that would be a good thing to do.
I think it's already, might even be in the calendar already in the planning. Yeah.
Is this a bit of insider knowledge that we're just?
It might be. I might get an absolutely awful.
Might have to cut this bit out.
Yeah. I'll find out if I can get clearance for this. One of them where your mouth runs away a little bit.
Yeah.
But it would be a great thing anyway, wouldn't it, to have I mean, we've been doing the exhibitions, obviously, like within the community, because and they're not, I think we did it so that we guaranteed everybody would get at least one piece of work in. So and that was a really nice way of taking everything that people had done in the 6 months and saying to the world, here it is, if people wanted to do that. And it was, some amazing work in there as well.
Yeah, I had a look through it, a few weeks ago, and there's some lovely stuff come out of it. And it's, just great that, everybody, like you say, everybody that's taken part actually gets to display something. And that's only going to help people, and boost them, give them more confidence to hopefully push themselves a bit further, and
absolutely
refine. And once you find your little niche within this niche, you can hopefully thrive even more and more in it.
I hope so. That's it's definitely partly the reasoning for that. And then we have the exhibitions from the workshops as well. I don't know if you had a chance to look at those. There's some really amazing work comes out of those. And that's always because we do a kind of the workshops. So these are a separate thing to the community, although obviously it's sort of one big family, and that does take people on a journey, from like, let's start with this theme of new beginnings, and it goes through tiny bit of technique, but not much. And then, mood and visual storytelling, curating, all of the things that kind of go to putting a set of images together. And we all work through that together and then have an exhibition at the end. And it's always astonishing the way that unfolds. Most people will have at least one meltdown in the middle where they just think, oh, do you know what? I don't think I can do this. I think I've like overestimated what I can do, and I don't think it's going to work for me. I just haven't got the skills. Almost everybody that happens to. And then at some point it just tips through the feedback sessions or whatever, and they're starting to curate, and then they all just come away with this mind-blowing work at the end of it. Even over just 8 weeks, no one fails to put a little series of images or a project together at the end. Some really high quality stuff. Stuff in there I wish I'd done.
I was going to say that. Well, that's all. I was going to look through these things, and I'm like, that's really good. I'm going to have to try to copy that. Should I say take inspiration from?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a really good thing to try, right? The next time I'm going to see something vaguely, like that, I'm going to be trying that.
Yeah.
Steal that little idea.
But that's, it's a good thing. It's the way we all learn is is by either doing or seeing or inspiration of whatever type, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
put it all together, and like you say, it's everything comes together in your own, in your own work, and that comes through, for me, representative photography or normal landscape photography. You're stuck with what's in front of you.
Yeah.
This is all about interpretation and influences from outside of photography, or for me, that's why it's way more exciting than anything else. And so glad I found the whole niche that we all work in. Because without it, would I be doing stacking shelves somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I probably would be too. Yeah.
So that's what I mean for me. Like ICM photography has been a massive gift. It's just because I think like artistically, from when I was young, they said, "Oh, like Andrew he's a good drawer or whatever, and he's reasonable paint." And then you just get to the point where like, actually, I'm just average. I'm just and you're like, I'm just struggling on it, and then you just find that one thing that you've got a little bit of talent in, or that you're really happy doing.
Yeah,
that's the big difference.
And I don't think we nurture culture enough in young people in this country, or certainly my experience. I didn't do anything really art related, I wouldn't say, until I started the photography. I had like a handmade soap company for a while, which I would do with all really natural botanical things, like brew herbs up for the colors and smells. So that was sort of edging towards creative a little bit, and some felting, but I would never ever have described myself as a creative person. And even now, if I have to say I'm an artist or a photographer, I don't like the word photographer because people just assume you're out doing weddings and babies. Then there's loads of people who hate it if you call yourself an artist when you're a photographer because they think it's pretentious. But whichever word I'm using, I always still going, but are you really?
That uneasy feeling of like,
And I think that is very telling, that I think we are often told we're not creative when we're young, and then we tell ourselves that for a long time. And I still hear people even now, even heard somebody just last week saying that they've got no creativity in them at all. And I just thought, no, I fully believe that is not true anymore of anyone. I think anyone would find a thing at least that they are creative with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can be creative with maths equations or whatever, that's creativity.
But even
doesn't need to be in a picture form or anything.
No, and there's installations, there's ideas, isn't there? There's creative thinking even, but even I think just in terms of physical art, most people would be able to create something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I said earlier on, it's all down to our own eye. There'll be a lot of stuff that's highly regarded and world famous, and I'm just looking at it and going, I haven't got a clue, or I think it's crap. And then, but they're like, I'm probably dead now, but in that time, multi-millionaires or whatever, and lived the creative life. But for me, they're just like, means nothing to me. But if you've got the confidence to do that, then good on you. It's almost, I mean, like probably in my own case, like I've got very little confidence in myself for a lot of things, but in one thing is what I produce. Is I've got the confidence. I was going to say the balls. I've got the confidence to actually make that fly in the face of what everybody else seems to be doing and put it out there. So I think you just got to be. You do have to be brave in this world, and
for sure,
and if you've got a little bit of creativity and you are brave, then you can just jump in, go for it.
I mean, the thing that's unlocked it for me is realizing I can help other people with it, because that's helped me take it out of my introverted self, who, when people ask me what I do or want me to talk about it, I just kind of die inside. But actually the thought of being able to help someone else can lift me right out of that space and think, okay, so let's just get down to business here and talk about it. Yeah.
And that'll be why you're regarded as one of the, one of the main educators in this field, you see. So.
Well, I don't know about
there
that.
You go.
It sounds quite lofty.
I'll put you right up there.
Oh, thank you. Well, I mean, and then whenever they come to me, I'm like, oh, you're gonna have to ask Andy.
Tell you what, we'll just keep on pushing clients in each other's direction.
Yeah, maybe we should do the co-mentoring.
Yeah, we could do. Yeah,
give it a go.
One side, one the other discipline.
Yeah,
I should say.
Yeah, no.
Grant, well, thank you very much for taking part. It's been lovely to chat with you for the first time.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
It's been a pleasure to finally meet you after all this time, and obviously hearing your name for the last 15 years or whatever it is. So it's been great. Before we finish, where can we find more about yourself, your own work, and also where can we find out about the ICM network as well?
So for Ted and myself, it's www.leemingpaterson.com. We've got various social channels, which I maintain very poorly, but you can dig around for them from the website. The ICM Photo Mag Network. Sorry, Andy, you're going to have to cut this.
All right. Was it ICM Photo Mag .network?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
That's what it is.
Have I blown that? Shall I just do that bit again?
No, it's all right. I'll just leave it in.
Cool. My brain, I had COVID in November, and ever since then.
Is it still not quite come back?
It's not quite come back. I did hear a thing the other day where they said your brain's maybe shrunk by 2% on average if you've had COVID. And the bit that remembers website names is definitely
it's the first casualty away.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we did get that right in the end.
Good. Right. Yeah. Well, I had it up on my screen, so that's how I knew. I was prepared for a change. Well, that's great. Well, thank you again, Morag. It's been lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming on, being a guest on the After the Click Photography podcast. Now, if you're listening on the audio version, there will be a video version coming out. It goes on to the Patreon first, and then about a month's delay, it will be out on YouTube. So, and if you're watching this on YouTube, then you can catch the audio version on anchor.fm/aftertheclick. And I think that's about it. So thank you all for listening and watching. So until the next one, keep a heart. Bye.